For more analysis on the market shifts around the world and the innovations of the auto industry, we're joined live from Atlanta by an expert in the car industry who has one of the coolest titles I know. Lauren Fix, you are called the car coach. You must have given it to yourself. Nonetheless, very cool. Welcome to the show. One of the things that we've talked about here is the Chinese automaker companies planning to come into the United States. Now, they currently are not building cars to export here, but there are plans to do so, Volvo being one of them. But let's talk more broadly. Will it work?
Well, you know, they've tried at the Detroit Auto Show a couple years in a row, which is the North American International Auto Show, huge international event. And the press just hasn't seemed to like glom onto it. If you look at it from an analytical perspective, you're looking at cars that are in the marketplace that are about quality, style, design, longevity, and there's a very competitive marketplace in the U.S. For China to sell here is the ultimate goal. If you can sell in the U.S. and China, the two largest marketplaces, you're a successful company. They're going to have to bring something that much different. You're looking at the Koreans coming in with 10-year, 100,000-mile warranties. The Japanese are already here in strength. For China to come in, they have to offer that much more.
Now, I remember a time, and that's because my age probably is a lot different than yours, that you may not remember that when the Japanese first came to America, guess what? They were criticized for being cheap, crappy, poor quality, and ugly. And remember, the Koreans had the same problem as well.
Yes.
And then they had the 100,000 miles, and look, the rest is history. But isn't that just the natural progression of anybody that's new to the marketplace, is that you're going to be faced with all this criticism about quality and the wheels falling off and things of that nature?
Absolutely. I think that there is always a marketplace for a car. If the Chinese brought their cars in today, there would become a franchise dealer network very quickly, because everyone knows, as P.T. Barnum says, there's a butt for every seat. So if they brought the cars in, they absolutely will sell them, no matter what the price point, no matter what the quality, but they will have to step up their game in order to compete with the Japanese and the Koreans, who have stepped up theirs.
What about Mexico? You know, there was a time when a lot of car companies, and there still are today, and there's much more investment coming, but they're building cars, not just to export to the U.S., but build it in Mexico and export to the rest of the world, right?
Right, and absolutely, because you have to look at the cost of building the vehicles there, plus they don't have unions like we have here in the United States, so the cost of building it, labor costs, fixed and variable overhead, are substantially less than here in North America, the rest of North America.
And you look at the two big places. If you're going to be a successful automaker, you better sell cars to China. You better sell cars in America. I mean, you essentially need both. I don't think it's an or thing anymore. And obviously, the legacy car makers are doing that. Do you think, you know, aside from China, will we see new car companies try to enter this market, or are the barriers to entry to get into this business just too high?
Well, you're going to see Indian car makers come in. Tata's already here with Jaguar and Land Rover, and if they start bringing that Tata low-priced car here, they will sell too. So if China comes in, I guarantee you India will be right behind them, because those are three huge marketplaces, and the only way to be successful is to sell in all three, which is why every manufacturer wants to build a plant in China for that market. Nissan's done it. They're going to bring in Renault. That's coming in before the year is out. They plan to take a big chunk of the market segment.
All right. You are the car coach. I'm going to give you a chance to talk to all these executives that are watching this potentially in China, who might be thinking of ways, how do I sell a car to customers like you and your friends and your neighbors? And they look at the U.S., and we broadly describe the U.S. as being the same, but let's be honest, the West Coast is different than the East Coast, and the Midwest is different than both coasts. Right. What's your advice to those executives who say, well, what do I got to do to sell in the U.S.? Do I need to buy another company? Should I do a joint venture? Do I just need to buy ads in the Super Bowl?
Well, I think buying ads in the Super Bowl is a large waste of money, and for the most part, I think you need to get in the hands of the auto journalists, because they're going to say the yay or the nay. First, we didn't like the Korean car manufacturers. Now that Kia and Hyundai are putting out quality product. So what you need to do is find a target market. What segment do you want? Is it crossover utilities, which are huge right now? Is it compact SUVs? Find one target segment and hit that really hard, because if you do, and you get the journalists on board, and you can get in the hands of consumers and do consumer events and hit that target market just so right with everything that they're looking for, once it starts, it'll just spread like wildfire, and suddenly everyone's going to say, hey, why don't you make a sedan? Why don't you make a larger SUV? Please make a pickup truck. And they'll be making product that consumers want here in the U.S., which is totally different product than what you're currently producing in China.
Lauren, last question. Look, the U.S. automakers, I mean, they've had a tough go the last decade or so. In the last couple of years, things have gotten a lot better, right? We've seen more cars being sold than any of us would have guessed just 6 or 7 years ago. But look at what's happening in Europe. They're still dragging their feet trying to get out of the recessions that they've had to deal with. China has a little bit of a slowdown as well. But somehow the car makers seem to be in fairly good shape. I guess my first question is, are you surprised? And two, where do you see the next big growth to come from in the next 4 or 5 years?
Well, right now, the Germans seem to be doing very well here. Audi and VW Group as a whole is selling very well here in the U.S. and across the world. They're starting to rank number 2 right behind Toyota. So when you're looking at growth segment, you're looking at crossover utilities, you're looking at compact SUVs, and you're looking at sport or hot hatches is what they're talking about, what we call them here, which are small 5-door hatchbacks that are fun to drive, that meet people's needs. And if you're looking at what's selling, still the big selling vehicle here in the U.S. is the F-150, #1 selling vehicle, because we need trucks here, and that's something that our marketplace needs that is not necessarily a great fit for the Chinese market. So for them, they might consider the compact SUV market as a future growth area.
All right, Lauren Fix, thank you so much for joining us, the Car Coach. Next time, we're going to talk about motorcycles and bikes, okay?
It's a deal, okay.
All right, thanks again for coming on to the show. Very cool.